the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
Welcome to us, the InsideOutrz, and our podcast. And my name is Danny Lloyd, and I took the I out of addict, and now I put the Y in you.
And it's the best, better than Danny Lloyd, the lock dog. Let's get into it.
We have a very special guest here today, a man that's close to our heart and actually is now a part of our business as a partnership, and also an all-round beautiful man from my side of the world, although he's not British, he's Scottish. Mr. Jim Ryan, welcome.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
We are fan-davy-dozy and all the better for having you here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We very much appreciate you taking the time out of a busy entrepreneurial schedule of yours to come and impart your story and the wisdoms that come with such a story.
Always good to share some time with like-minded people.
Yes, it certainly is. But before we crack on, quickly would like to give us a shout out to our sponsors. Mr. Dan Smith of Killer Moe's down in Moana Beach, south as fuck. If you want the merchandise and you want to support the movement, then get online, go to the cartel and go and get the clothing, because this man is doing everything he can for the community, and so the community should do everything they can for him to be successful. And also our shout out to our American brother in Bullhead, Arizona, Mr. Ryan Ferrari of 5-Star Classified, which is an online community that prides themselves on no censorship, and you can buy and sell any item you want from only 99 cents. Thank you both for having our backs and helping us grow. Let's get into it, Lock Dog.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, my name's Jim Ryan. I'm Scottish, as you can probably tell, and everybody listening can probably tell. I try and speak with subtitles so that everybody else can get to understand me. But yeah, ask away. What questions do you have? What would you like to know?
Well, on this podcast, we are very much about sharing stories. Stories that end with somewhat success, but success is in the eye of the beholder. So let's start at the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning and explain what's going on along your timeline all the way up for this moment to take place.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up in Scotland in a little small town, there isn't really a whole lot there for you, eh? Like, I left it 30 odd years ago. The same guys are probably sitting in the same stool in the same pub, telling the same stories. Great place to visit. I've got lots of happy, fond memories there. But growing up, kind of all I remember is like my dad getting made unemployed and redundant through every recession, the steel factories shutting down. So it was a pretty kind of tough place to grow up. So for me, I got the option. My gran took me along to go skating with my mum, my aunt. And that got me into ice hockey. And for me, ice hockey was a way out. There was no point in me really trying at school because like nobody really achieved much, certainly in the small circle that I was in at that time. I've gone on to see that other people went to university and did other things, but in my immediate circles, that was never an option. So when I was 16, I left Scotland. I got the chance to go and become a professional ice hockey player in England. So I travelled, moved across to Peterborough, then moved back to my hometown a few years later, moved back to England when I was a bit older. Did that up until I was about 23, 24 years old. Played at a fairly high level, played for Great Britain juniors, travelled the world. It was a great way to see the world and meet lots of interesting girls from lots of different countries. Yeah, that was a very...
They love the ice hockey, they love all of the fighting and all of the manly stuff.
And apparently a Scottish accent's quite a good thing as well.
It's meant to be one of the most attractive accents on a man that this planet has.
It's definitely the most well-known. I hear Scottish accent, I think Braveheart.
Yeah.
Every time.
Or Gerard Butler.
Yeah, or Gerard Butler.
I've never actually been to Scotland. I just put this accent on. So from that, when I was living in Milton Keynes, I used to go and work, because look, we trained a couple of nights a week, we played at the weekends, so there was lots of spare time. So I used to go and work in gyms as a fitness trainer and stuff, and met a lot of good people, and met a guy that was involved in working with the police, a guy called Dick Searle, awesome guy, and through him, I kind of jagged a job with the police. Never ever wanted to be a police officer, never thought about it. I remember saying to my dad one time, I says, "Hey Dad, I'm the first police officer in our family." And he told his dad, and they went, and my dad and his brothers were bits of lads, eh?
Yeah.
Like there was often a bit of bother, not bad, but always. So my granddad's reply when he said to my granddad was that I was the first member of the police, he says, "Yeah," he says, "but we had 27 of them at the door one week for you and your brother." So look,
like
that was
it.
something that I never planned on. That wasn't me, a young guy coming from Scotland. Like you kind of, for no reason, you've never had any negative interactions, but you kind of get told, like, that's the police. You either really like them or you hate them.
Yeah, it's
And
like Marmite.
Yeah, and
I love it or you hate it.
And like growing up in Scotland, there was enough hate with Catholic, Protestant, and everything else. I never understood the reason of disliking someone just because of where they were born, what they were born, or anything else.
Yeah.
So for me, when I get the option of joining the police, it was like, well, look, I don't have many other options in life.
Yeah.
So I jumped at it. So from being a civilian, then I became a police officer in '96. Actually had a bit of a knack to it, and I think that was probably more to do with the background growing up and knowing all the dodgy people.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it kind of gave you a bit of a head start.
Yeah, kind of. You'd already studied at the University of Life, so
Yeah.
you were already kind of had your diplomas at least.
And I was one of the good ones. I kind of generally based it on the rule that treat everybody how you would like somebody treating your mum and dad. And obviously different situations call for different things, but for the most part, that was the philosophy that I approached. I'm 5'8". I'm not going to fight my way out of too many things, so I'm going to use my mouth to get out of it, and I'm going to be everybody's mate, and we'll get everything sorted in the nicest possible way. We'll all be home for tea and biscuits.
You got to be smart when you pick your battles.
Especially at my height. So, look, I did that for a while, and then I got the chance to come across to Australia. I was married at the time, so coming across with my ex was kind of, I'd probably say it was a bit of a make or break thing. It wasn't really that tip-top, the marriage that I had, which is probably being polite. So moved across here, 2005, then due to have a kid in 2009. 2008, the rug got pulled out from underneath my world. I was diagnosed with a degenerative neurological condition. Now, we form this opinion of who we are, what we are, and it's based on our abilities, it's based on our interactions. And all of a sudden, I've got this thing where I am no longer the person I thought I was. But not only that, my mind went to every worst case scenario about all my future possibilities. So everything went kind of doom and gloom. Then carry on, do a bit more. The roles that I was doing within the organisation changed because you can't be arresting people and shaking more than they are. So I couldn't do all that frontline stuff, and that carries a stigma in itself when you're no longer fit for purpose within an organisation.
That tends to have also quite a lot of ego at times in it. So the police force, or I know over here Star Force and the different units. So yeah, I guess when you don't have that 110% capacity, a lot of egos can switch on and be like, well, I don't want him backing me up if he's not going to be able to hold a gun or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. There's all those things. Well, to be fair, every other bastard's safer than the person I'm aiming at.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... So, I mean, it's... Yeah. So there was that. And then 2011, we have our second child. 2012, we get diagnosed with a second degenerative neurological condition. So that really floors me. So I've got these two kind of competing things that's affecting my body, affecting my mentality. So I was floored. So I ended up leaving work, doing the stay-at-home dad thing, which then isolated me further from connection, community, no finances, everything. All of a sudden, my world became smaller and smaller and smaller.
And that's probably not very helpful when you're trying to battle a couple of different degenerative diseases, to sit in your own head and have no independence of any description.
Pretty much in a nutshell, that covers it. Yeah, but when I was in that position earlier on, it kind of seemed as though that would be the best thing, because then I don't need to deal with people at work who see me shaking. Because in your head, at that stage, people's perceptions of me meant more than the actual physical disabilities. I didn't want to be seen to be less than, because all of a sudden I was feeling less than, but I could kind of hold it together without anybody else noticing. But once it kind of seemed that everybody else was noticing, that seemed to affect me more. And with neurological conditions, the more stressed you get, the more you show out. So it's just like a real vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And that's the same with a lot of conditions, eh?
Yeah,
when that stress creeps in, then
we've got a bit of a theory ourselves at the moment. Me and the lock dog, with this young man that we're supporting and looking after, who has very harsh cards he's been dealt with, a very severe disability. But we've got a real interesting ethos that we feel that removing and working on his mindset and his emotional past stuff that he could let go of could improve his physical health and mobility with this very aggressive and harsh set of cards he's been dealt by life.
Look, I mean, everything and everybody is different, but there's definitely no doubt for a lot of cases that when you can reclaim that positive mindset, when you can improve that, a lot of our physical stuff is often linked to our mental.
It's mind-body, right? Mind-body connection.
That's where modern medicine, they view each thing as like, this is it, we deal with this. Like, oh, I've got depression. Okay, here's tablets.
Yeah.
The doctor never says, well, what's caused your depression? Let's look at this. How was your childhood, mate? Let's go down this route.
Or even in the physical realm, right? Like, you go to a doctor, say, I got a knee problem. My knee, I'm in a lot of pain with my knee. They never go, oh, okay, cool, I'm going to go and send you and just go and see a counsellor or psychologist just to figure out where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But that's actually truth, that it could be referring from actually something that's deeper mentally.
There's a brilliant guy, a US doctor, I think he was from the 60s and 70s, Dr. John E. Sarno. And what he coined was a condition called tension myositis syndrome. And basically, the long and the short of it is where the body and the mind compresses and keeps everything shut down, because to allow particularly rage, to allow that to explode and to allow the mind to explore it would be too traumatic. So what that suppression does is it causes the mind on a subconscious level to release pain elsewhere in the body.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, this is kind of based on...
Which is, because the mind moves the body.
Yeah.
Like the tail doesn't wag the dog wags the tail.
No.
Yeah. And generally in medicine, we isolate the problem or the symptom and we try to treat it in isolation. So, if you've got an earache, that's all right. Put these drops in your ear, hopefully it goes away. But why do you keep getting the earache? What's going on in the environment? What's happening outside of the problem for the problem to remain in existence?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that took me, in terms of where I was in my life, that took me up to kind of the marriage spontaneously combusting. And when that happened, that was, for me, the real kind of decline in my mental and physical health. I got to a stage where there was one day where it was a Saturday morning, still in the same house, and I left the house that morning and I thought, like, how can I kill myself that this is not going to affect my kids? Like, that was the mentality. Like, how can I do this and leave a pretty body? I thought about everything from, like, taping chairs to myself and chucking myself in the pool and doing all these weird and wonderful things. And I thought, fuck, I can't keep going on like this. This is not right. Like, there was no attempt. There was nothing else. I was at a low, but I realised that I needed help.
Yeah.
So I drove to a doctor's, and fortunately, because it was a Saturday, around about 11 o'clock, I don't know, maybe the footy was due to be on that day, but the doctor's was fairly empty, so I managed to get myself an appointment. And this doctor was pretty smart. He figured out that I had severe depression once I started chatting to him, which wouldn't really have taken Einstein to figure out, but that's what he said. He says, look, you've got this, and here's your tablets. Off you go. We'll get you an appointment with someone, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
So for me, I very quickly realised nobody's coming in on a white horse to save you.
No.
There's when you're young and you separate from someone, you've got 100 mates that all want to go out and hit the pub and do all these different things. But when you're in your 40s, everybody's got their own shit. Everybody's just trying to get by. Everybody's just muddling through life as best as they can. And those life boys of friends that you get, they become a little bit fewer or far between. Maybe they're a bit deeper as you get older. Maybe that's a good thing. But for me, it was a real struggle, like the loneliness, just that kind of, what am I going to do? Like when I don't have the kids, you just kind of sit and twiddle your thumbs. So I have a cousin from Northern Ireland who's worked with like Gabor Mate and various other trauma specialists. I'd tried everything up to this point, because like you think, what am I going to do? How am I going to... All these different weird and wonderful things where all it is everybody wants your money. Nobody really cares if it works or not. So for me, it was a case that when I spoke to my cousin and she told me about havening and float therapy, I tried the float therapy first, and it was like, fucking hell, this is the first time my mind and body has had a break, because I couldn't even go and lie in bed at night, because the minute, like, I might be exhausted, but the minute the light goes off and I lay on bed, it's like the brain switches on, and then all of a sudden you get all these worst case scenarios running through your head. What if you can't do this? What if you can't do that? What if you don't have a house? What if?
Yeah, wow.
So
That's a lot. Like, that's a lot just to process, even trying to deal with that. I mean, at this point, had you got some sort of comprehension on what these two conditions were and what technically the map ahead looked like?
Well,
with it?
yeah, because again, you go to the doctors and you get diagnosed with something. So straight off the bat, you begin to do a bit of research on it, and then you start finding out more. So for one of the conditions, at the moment, the main thing that kind of can help is a thing called deep brain stimulation. So they basically drill a hole in your head and put an electrode in your brain, and that rewires the circuit. But with that comes with all manner of weird and wonderful stuff. And even that's if you can afford it, because that's like $30,000-$40,000 for that kind of thing. So I mean, nobody likes the idea of having a big hole in their head and be fitted up to these weird and wonderful pacemakers.
It's more than that, isn't it? Because it's also a hole in your bank account.
Clever.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And remember,
Well, clever.
worrying about money and jobs and everything else. So there was all that. So for me, that havening and float therapy, they changed my life completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely completely. The first time getting in that tank and being able to just switch off and leave the world behind was just such a wonderful experience. And then between that and then once I'd done the havening, that was life-altering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's... So, before that, you were in the police force,
Yeah.
like, for quite some time, eh?
16 years.
16 years. Right. So, what you've ended up going on to do now, which you're starting to discuss, did that help what you do now by what you did then, by helping or reading people or figuring things out?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Look, I believe that a lot of what we go through, it might not necessarily be what we want, but it's not happening to us. Often it's happening for us. So all these different things, these different roles in my life have all contributed to make me the person that I am today. Everything has added to that picture.
Yeah.
One of the things that I used to love in the police was interviewing people, sitting down and like particularly the more complex stuff. And like you say, reading the bodies. So when I'm sitting with someone in a havening session now, I'm using all those skills and abilities that I learned with the police. And I believe that that is making me better at havening because it's allowing me to look for cues, signals, a little gulp here or a little, did you just feel that in your throat? Like, remember?
Yeah, I do, yeah. You want me to share my experience?
Yeah, sure.
All right, without going into too much detail for the listeners, because it's very private.
Yeah. Let's just peek behind the
it
curtain.
was only a couple of days ago that I was doing havening with Jim in his incredible business, and he's incredible at guiding you through that whole experience. But without going into detail, Jim helped me move through some difficult things that had happened earlier on in my life and even recently, but just the way they'd all kind of tied into one another. And it was just like a big soggy emotional stain on my soul. And it's one of those things you learn to live with, kind of like chronic pain. You can learn to live with pain to a point where you forget that it's there, but it's causing a big problem. But yeah, as we move through it, and like Jim just read I'd swallow, like I would gulp at a time I probably didn't need to, but that's, the body's saying there's something going on here. And all these things were happening, and Jim was just picking up on them. And even when I was, stuck at times, it's as if Jim knew where I was without me being able to put a name on it. So it was an incredible experience. And even a couple of days later, I still feel like I'm emotionally drained, as if like I just finished crying 15 minutes ago.
It's that reintegration.
And yeah, I definitely think it's my body releasing whatever's going on mentally and physically.
What would you... Because you got to remember, right? Some of the listeners that listen, they're not in the field that we are all generalized in. We've got our specific areas. If the listeners are listening in, especially the ones in Adelaide, it's 153 Flinders Street, Breeze Stretch Float. Just saying. But if the listeners are listening in, Lock Dog, how would you say that to them when they're not in our field? How would you explain in like a sentence or two what havening would be to the average person and why they would go?
If there's, we could use the term trauma. If there's some emotional baggage, there's some trauma, there's some things that keep popping up in the background of your mind that are impairing you in any way moving forward, whether it be imposter syndrome or little things that come up. There's always a root cause. So going through havening really helps you to release it, let it go, see it in a different light, move on from it.
Yeah, cool.
It's like having a weight shackled to your ankle.
Yeah.
Like you kind of come to think that I've got freedom as far as this chain will reach, and you learn to be happy with that, and you forget that trauma is that heavy ball that is at the other end of that shackle on your ankle. And when you let it go, you realise that there's a lot further I can walk now.
Yeah. I think, as well, it's an extremely impressive setup you've got there generally, not just the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the only salt therapy room in South Australia too. Is that correct?
There are other salt therapy rooms. We've got the only Himalayan salt cave, so ours is decked out like the cave, which is about
it's
creating that atmosphere.
mad as a box of frogs. I literally walked in the first time, and all the walls are massive square granites of Himalayan salt, and the floor is as if they went and robbed 1,000 salt grinders from Aldi and opened them all and threw them on the floor, and then you got Mum doing the Reiki.
Yes, we have indeed. There's about 4 tons of salt in that room.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah.
4 tons of salt. It's just insane, that salt therapy room, which is where you conduct the havening, but that's actually a separate thing as well. The salt therapy
Yeah.
is separated too, but you get a banging 2-in-1 offer with the
Yeah,
the
so
havening.
it's you double the bang for your buck. So I
Yeah.
do all the havenings in the salt cave.
Yeah.
It's a great environment for it. It's just the room's got such a great energy, but the salt therapy itself.
Yeah.
So that's great for people with respiratory conditions, skin conditions. We've got a client 4 years ago. She'd been given a month to live for a lung specialist.
Yeah.
She's got a condition, chronic bronchiectasis. She would be hospitalised 5 times a year for up to 5 weeks at a time with pneumonia. She uses the room 3 times a week. She hasn't had a cough, a cold. She doesn't get hay fever symptoms anymore. She hasn't had a hospitalisation for respiratory infection, and she's still here 4 years later.
Yeah, wow. So give us a generalized rundown with the salt therapy stuff, like the kind of conditions that people may be going through. Give us a generalized list of a few.
Yeah, salt therapy is massively beneficial for conditions like asthma, allergies, hay fever, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, coughs, colds. I was coming down with a flu last Saturday. Well, I felt I was coming down with a bit of a cold. Jumped in the salt room on Saturday. Saturday night got hit like a ton of bricks. I was shivering, I was cold, temperature up and down. So really, like, kind of the flu came on big time. So jumped in the salt room for the next 3-4 days, and that was enough to get all over those symptoms. Whereas anybody I know that doesn't use the salt therapy, they have the flu for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they're still complaining about not being able to get over it. So that's the benefit of it, and it's great for skin conditions. Also good for athletes because it optimizes oxygen uptake. So they've done some studies with athletes of master's age, so those athletes 40 plus. And over the course of 6 weeks, they did no extra training, but they gave them 2 sessions of salt therapy a week during that time. Their VO2 inhale, exhale increased across the board between 10 and 24%, which if you're an athlete
That's
trying
a
to...
lot.
Yeah, if you're looking for body hacks.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, and that clears the brain fog, that allows the body to work better.
Okay.
But that's actually something I'd noted after we had first met, and we met in the salt therapy room.
Yeah, that's right.
And you turned it on, but it was the next few days, like me and Lloydie had gone for a walk on the beach and over the sand dunes, and my breathing was just incredible. Nice, full, deep breaths without consciously doing it, but I was able to notice that my gasping for air wasn't there, and I was like, this is incredible. It's definitely the salt therapy. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah. It's hard to quantify, but the energy in that room is just on a different vibration of consciousness. It's mad. Like, you go in and it feels like you've detached from this fucking circus that we're living in.
Not
generally.
bad for a city centre place, eh?
Yeah, bang in the city centre, like, and you just walk in this big office building, and then to the right there's just this bloody haven for havening.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I love walking in there. It's every time I say it, it just smells like healing.
Yeah, it smells like
That's where you go to heal. It smells like healing. It is healing. It's great.
Yeah. So, okay, so now we've got a bit of a context of the havening process. Tell us your journey to becoming the amazing practitioner and healer that you are now for people through these processes.
Well, look, I guess partly it's down to the fact that I had to recreate myself. I've had a career, I've had a life, I've moved from one stage, and after the divorce, there was a little bit of money, and there was an option that I could either put some money down on a house and work for someone else for the rest of my life, doing something that wouldn't make me happy, wouldn't fill my values, wouldn't do any of those things. Or I thought, I can take a chance and I can try and use those tools that served me so well. I can use them to help other people who may be in similar or positions that require that kind of thing. Unfortunately, I just chose to do that before a worldwide pandemic because no bastard gave me the memo that was coming round the corner.
I've actually heard this story happen to a lot of people as well.
It's probably not as risky as going with the mortgage, though, when we look at today's climate.
To be fair, you probably, because I mean, let's face it, I could have got a job that was unfulfilling, unsatisfying, and maybe I was the last one in, first one out, so I could have got made redundant.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you lose that as well. So yeah, it's
Yeah, okay. Well, so how did you go about, so your cousin, you said, knew about it, and she uses it herself. Was that correct? In Ireland? Ireland?
She's got a float centre in Northern Ireland.
That's
so
right.
Northern Ireland has the highest rate of suicide in the Western world because of all the troubles that had gone on there.
Yeah.
So male suicide is through the roof there. So she's got a float centre. She deals with clients through NLP, various other types of stuff. There's a movie. She's made a movie about her life to kind of show where she's came from and how she's moved on. So, yeah, like very inspirational woman. So when she started telling me about these things, and then I saw that there was the practical aspect of it, and then I benefited from them myself.
Yeah. Yeah, which is important. You've got to want to put so much time or effort into something. You've got to have tried it and seen that it's real, because there is bastards everywhere selling snake oil and 6 weeks and I'll heal your fucking life, and it's like no you still got to put the work in, even with the right tools. Like, we all have different tools, but I don't think one of us is ever going to sit there and tell our clients, yeah, we're just going to fix you. No, we're going to give you a springboard, but you got to keep working for the rest of your life on you.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean?
I can collapse 4 or 5 individual traumas in the one session, and we can collapse them from people will score, give a subject unit of distress when they think back to that traumatic memory, how negatively it affects them. So more often than not, most people are kind of 8, 9, 10 when they come in. By the end of the session, we can collapse everything down to often a 0.
Yeah.
But the client still has to go away, and it's not the keys to the golden. It's not the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
No.
They've got to go away, and there's still part of life that they've got to work on.
It definitely had a profound effect on me when I came a few months back to go through the havening and the float therapy. I actually did a before and after video, and I actually looked younger. Within 2 hours, it looked like I was 3 or 4 years younger. Like, because I was going in there just doing the stories to promote that I was doing this for Jim. But actually afterwards, Jim said, you should go look back at your 2 video stories. You look different. And I look back and I'm like, wow, that's random. I look like 3 or 4 years younger in the second video. There's like 2 hours, well, maybe 3 hours between them.
When you take all that stress out the body, that allows it to reset. But what made me laugh about your second video, you were so chilled out.
Yeah.
You couldn't even say breathe, stretch, float.
No, I got it wrong. I got the whole thing wrong. But going back to your point, what you just made is, it's not like that's just healed the whole of my life, but it is definitely integrated. And that's the next thing is, you do it, and then you need to be patient with it, because it can sometimes take weeks to integrate inside of you so that you can then be outside of the problem finally. But it's collapsing past stuff that's holding you back from dealing with what's coming in the future. Because life's always going to catch you on the blind side. You're either in a problem, you're leaving one, or one's coming along. That's just how life is. There's no such thing as fair.
Yeah.
I don't know, that fucking word does my head in. There is no such thing as fair. It's just life. Right.
Yeah.
But my experience since then, I've just felt much more certain and centered around both personal relationship aspects and professional relationship with myself aspects.
Yeah.
There's still problems in my life. There's still things coming at me. I just don't have a charge towards them like I did.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
But so the reality is that all we are is chemical and electrical beings, and the shit in our head is either the shit someone else has put in there or the shit that we make of the events that we go through.
Yeah.
So trauma is nothing more in our mind than a chemical receptor that gets locked into the amygdala.
Yep.
So we are hardwired to respond to, we are hardwired to encode trauma because it actually keeps us safe. So what actually happens from an evolutionary point of view, we get chased by a saber-toothed tiger and either catches us and eats us, or in which case it doesn't matter what we thought about it, or we escape. Therefore, anything in the future that reminds us of a saber-toothed tiger puts our body into fight or flight, and that gives us the best possible chance of escaping again.
Yeah.
What happens now with trauma is we experience our traumas more so in the home or through social media or through various other things. And when we relive it, we're reliving it on the couch. So our body isn't burning off the glucose. We're not burning it off and running away and getting back to the start of the process again. So we sit and we go over it in our head. So we either get a sensation in the chest and we go, fuck, I'm having a panic attack, in which case we have the thought, which then creates more sensations. And that just goes looping round about. When you look at things from the Serengeti, you look at a gazelle getting chased by a lion, you don't see the gazelle escaping and spending the next 2 hours going, fuck me, that was close, and moaning about it.
Nah.
The gazelle it burns off all that shit and it's eating up the grass within 40 seconds later. Unfortunately with us, we sit in it and then that just makes it worse and worse and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So these chemical receptors in the brain, when we go through havening, we're actually ungluing those chemical receptors so that that traumatic memory gets reabsorbed and therefore it no longer fires off. So when you mention charge, that's it. You're no longer getting that charge because where you've previously had that stored in the amygdala that would give you that charge to certain events or circumstances, that has been squashed.
Yeah, yeah. And it's actually interesting you're saying about the like the saber-toothed tiger thing, like the basic human elements of life. Actually, I heard a quote the other day that makes perfect sense along with that, which was, if you're worried, then there's no need to worry. And if you're not worried, you should be worried. Which is basically the simplistic way of saying that the whole reason that we are on alert is to make sure that we're not in danger. And anyone that's not on alert, especially in business, is always in danger. It's this basic caveman shit, right?
Which is, like that breakdown you just gave, Jim. It's a really good breakdown, and it does highlight just how good those mechanisms are for a time back there.
Yeah.
Where in today's society, it's, those things don't work. You can't remain hypervigilant when you're at your desk at work, ready to, blow off steam at the wrong person or run out the office because of overwhelming anxiety.
See, the world has moved forward so fast, particularly when you start throwing in things like social media and the fact that our faces are always stuck to our phone.
Yeah.
But the biology and the anatomy of being a human being, that's got a long way to go before it catches up with all the rest of the stuff that we are, in essence, we are kind of cavemen to this new technology now.
Yeah.
This is all brand new to us, and we haven't evolved as fast as it has.
Yeah, and you see it today represented so well with the amount of diagnosis in things like generalized anxiety disorder, and generalized is a great label to not make people feel like idiots, because really it's called idiopathic anxiety disorder, which is you being hypervigilant, ready to run from that imaginary saber-toothed tiger at a time where there's no threat.
Yep.
You're expecting threat and acting as if there is a threat when there's not.
Yeah.
You could be in your in your backyard on a nicely fresh cut lawn, playing with your kids, and all of a sudden you're ready to go. Fight or flight or freeze. Something's happening.
Yeah.
Idiopathic.
Yeah, and it just needs something to trigger off that chemical receptor, that AMPA receptor where the original trauma's encoded, and that's it. You're back into that zone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So, where did you learn it? Like where did you go through the process, learn, and keep growing that learning pattern of it?
Well, it's a thing that you have to constantly learn with, because the science, particularly neuroscience, is constantly changing.
Okay.
I went to Melbourne way before COVID came along. There was a lady flew over from the US and a lady flew over from the UK to host a course. So I went and did the course, and then after that you've got to get so many case studies. You've got to put them towards an assessor. Your work has to be constantly assessed over a period of time. And once you've got the required amount, then you can say, right, you're certified now.
Yeah. Okay.
Incredible.
It's
something I would love to use in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's why we. So once upon a time, when Danny was full of all of the fucking drama in his head, starting a business.
Is he not?
No, not anymore. I'm a little bit more settled now. But at the start of this business, while we were exploring the Adelaide landscape and understanding any of it, I started going to a thing that many people may not have heard of, but it's called BNI, which is basically a business networking system and community that's all around the world, not just in Adelaide or Australia. And the one I went to that day was someone I knew there, which was Enya, and this was when you were at the old hotel thing, Rob Roy.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing great mentally anyway that day, and the day before it, and the day before that, because wasn't great back there. It looked like it was a lot to deal with in our mental health.
It's always a lot.
Yeah, it's always a lot. And I went in, and I was very overwhelmed when I went in the room, because it was a big room a small room with too many people back then with the old place you were at.
Yeah.
Anyway, by the end of this whole 80 people nearly in this room and all of the things, I had a fucking meltdown, and I couldn't wait to get out of there quick enough, because I just wasn't mentally good. And somehow, even though I hadn't even been introduced to talk to you, you ran after me and pretty much was like, "Hey, come have a coffee for a minute, let's have a yarn." And that's how I ended up getting to talk with you. I don't know how the fuck you read that, but you read it somehow and pulled me aside and was like, "Big fella, just sit down for a minute, let's have a chat." And then we had the chat, and I told Lock Dog, and I was like, "We're gonna go meet this lad. He's got this mad fucking clinic and he's doing this stuff, sounds aligned with us."
Yeah.
So that's when we went and met you and spent the day there. And from that point on, like, we partnered with yourself, and we see a lot of value for our clients. And we've already had a couple we've sent down your way for the different things they did. And one of which is just finishing their time off traveling now that you came to see, and said the best thing that she ever did.
Oh, awesome.
And it credits her visit to see us and while here, us getting her to come see yourself. Very, very, very good. And yeah, I mean, it's been great to have somebody that does similar things that we are very open-minded to, and to be able to partner as two small businesses to help people and give our clients this amazing wraparound where they can have multiple practitioners and even a physical clinic to come to with all of these different things. And it's very much why we believe and why we called ourselves the collective, because we don't want it to be an individual business. We want to be a business of businesses that can help people.
Well, the reality is we are here for the people that we help. We're not here for our egos. We're not here to say I've got the biggest and best of anything. If the people come to us don't get the service, I'd be mortified if I wasn't providing an end result. And for you guys, it's all about the benefits that you put into your clients. So for us to be in partnership with you, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Because you guys care, and that's exactly what it's all about.
Yeah, I think like attracts like, and yourself and also Troy, who you've met now with Well Team. Those two partnerships for us, we're very proud of them. To say we're a very infant stage of our business, but I think you rise as one under one sun when you find the right people that are aligned with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's fucking lonely anyway, trying to do this business stuff. So it's nice to be in the trenches with a couple of other soldiers, right?
Yeah, people that you can bounce off as well.
Yeah. So what effect has your career choice and also your practicing of havening, salt therapy, float therapy for your business, but what effect has it had on the neurological degenerations that you had been told you had, and where should you be now versus where you are now with those degenerative conditions?
Well, look, I know that if I was going down the same path that I was, the high stress, the constant worry, all of that, I know that I would be 10 times worse than I am just now. Look, I'm constantly looking for new things to try and see what will affect my brain in a positive way. There's a thing that I'm doing at the moment which is called methylene blue. That boosts oxygen in the mitochondria in the brain. I'm also doing red light therapy, which is photobiomodulation. So that in combination with the float therapy, that tweaked your ears, didn't it?
It's tweaking everything at the moment.
That is mad. My brain went off somewhere then.
Yeah, so look, because the float, that balances out this parasympathetic and central nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. That puts me in a deep state of relaxation. So just that float, the fact that I've balanced out all those aspects in my brain, those chemical AMPA receptors that were locked out from the traumatic news of getting diagnosed, of feeling suicidal, all those things, because I've managed to collapse all that, I'm not carrying all that baggage. And when you go through havening, it kind of feels as though once you've done your havening, it seems like you're a blank page, open book, ready to rewrite the future.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be a way that you could...
Well, his is very early on. It's only been a couple of days, so you maybe ask him
I definitely know what it's done for me mentally because I can feel it physically now.
Yeah.
I can feel it, like I described before, just that draining feeling of like I've just recently had a big cry.
Yeah.
And I could just go to sleep. And it's as much as I don't like to feel drained, I know that this is a really good thing for me to be going through. And it tells me that what you did in that session for me has really helped. And I'm yet to really see the way it's going to change things moving forward. Because kind of like we touched on before, like the trauma and collapsing those traumas or those really negative experiences, we tend to move forward looking to the future through the eyes of the past. And if those eyes of the past are tainted with trauma, then our new experiences and what we're seeing into the future is tainted by trauma also. So the experience is never authentic and what it really is because you see it as something bad, as good as it could be. A room full of cuddles could seem like a room full of danger. Yeah. And that's the way trauma can feel. So it's
fucking profound.
Yeah, a room full of
mad
cuddles.
metaphor, bruh.
Well,
that makes sense.
It's cool.
We all love the cuddles.
Yeah. That's cool. I needed this today. I was pretty tired when we got here, but you two between you feel like I'm just getting this constant neurological stimulation happening and my brain's just coming online. Probably won't sleep now tonight, but that's fine.
Now I lost where I was going with that.
So,
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
No, I've lost it. Continue on now.
No, gone.
The point's gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
The room full of cuddles?
Yeah, no, it's gone. Continue on, please.
Okay. So what should you look like right now because of this condition if you hadn't have stumbled into everything you have?
Look, it's one of those what ifs.
Technically, what was the projections if you would just stay stuck in the Western way?
Well, all the cases are different. It's one of those kind of things where it's degenerative. It should get worse. Some people reach a point and can plateau at certain points. Other people, it just constantly gets worse to the point that I wouldn't even be able to eat or feed myself because it's all the fine motor skills that it affects. So those kind of, like the personal hygiene stuff, like the brushing your teeth, all that kind of stuff, they're all the things that become more and more difficult. Eating food, particularly when there's people around about. Like, I don't like eating in front of people because my hand isn't my own. I begin to lose control. So, I mean, I firmly believe from the stuff that I've done, I'm in a better place, but I can't quantify it.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, you look pretty healthy to me. I don't even...
That's where I was going with it. The points come back
right
like a sharpened pencil.
Let's go.
The best thing about havening, because I need to give another compliment for anyone that's going to hear this and consider it, is telling our past stories of trauma can be re-traumatizing and triggering for a lot of people. So it's so very difficult. I'm sure we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Havening is a therapeutic approach that you get to remain in your head. You don't need to tell anyone. You know, it's guided by a great facilitator like Jim.
Yeah.
You're not disclosing all of your trauma and reliving it, but in your mind going through, for me, it's kind of like a picture show. You get to change the way it looks through your imagination of this picture show. And, you know, our brains psychologically sometimes can't tell the difference between what's imagination and what's real. So the trauma that happened, you may have seen it with your own eyes, feels very real. But if you can relive it again in a safe space like at Jim's clinic and go through that motion picture that's safe, your brain is picking up what it thinks is a real visual thing that's happening currently, which is a great thing about therapies that don't involve disclosure.
Yeah.
It's in your head, and your brain thinks that what you're imagining and seeing right now is real.
Yeah.
And what was once traumatic that you're reliving in your head is now fluffy and cuddly. It's a room full of cuddles.
Yeah.
It's gone from the dangerous room back to the room full of cuddles. That's the benefit of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely recommend anybody that is in the Adelaide area to invest in themselves, because don't sit there and tell me there's nothing wrong with you. Everyone's got something wrong with them. And anyone that's venomously telling you that there's nothing wrong with them, there's a lot wrong with them. Everybody has something that they are running away from, they've hidden, or that they haven't wanted to take themselves on about at some point. And there's a multitude of things out there these days that you can use to find a better way of living your life.
Yeah.
And it's been proven. Well, we'll take a little quick segue and then we'll crack on and start wrapping things up. Read all about it. Read all about it. It's the news of the week. So I thought today I would have something a little bit more interesting instead of just a clown-like thing, because I believe the last time we talked about something, it was to do with...
It's just nonsense.
It's not nonsense, but... it's a segment and it's a bit of fun, but this one I thought would be a little bit more intriguing and interesting to just explore a little bit. So, you know instantly, right, when someone is speaking to an infant or a small child, right? You know with the
Oh, the same way you talk to dogs.
Yeah, the same way I talk to dogs.
Okay.
So it turns out that dolphin mothers also use the same kind of high-pitched baby talk that we do as humans to babies. You know what I'm talking about, especially the ladies. You know, the minute they see a baby, it's like their voice decides to go up to, like, you know, what's the one at the top?
So the high-pitched decibels and...
Yeah, we get, like, you know, the tenor and
it's
the...
like, oh, look at this chubby cheeks.
Yeah, it's like they automatically lose their motor function to talk like a grown-up. So a study published Monday found that the female bottlenose dolphins changed their tone when addressing their calves. They use these whistles to keep track of each other. They're periodically saying, I'm here, I'm here. It's where they do the sonar stuff, right? When directing the signal to their calves, the mother's whistle pitch is higher and her pitch range is greater than usual. And that was true they did a study, right? It's crazy study. Like, human beings crack me up. It's like, you know, like sometimes I sit there and I think to myself, like, do they just have money to throw at research? Like to come up with this shit? Anyway, this study, they went and chucked a load of microphones on these dolphins. They picked 19 dolphins. And every one of the 19 that they studied had this thing where they would change their pitch with the baby. Like you see mothers and fathers, some do that. So obtaining this data was no simple feat. Over more than 3 decades of doing this, the scientists placed special microphones multiple times on the same wild dolphin mothers in Florida. Why people, dolphins, or other creatures use baby talk isn't certain, but scientists believe it may help offspring learn to pronounce novel sounds. Research dating back to the 1980s suggests that human infants may pay more attention to speech with a greater pitch range. Female rhesus monkeys may alter their calls to attract and hold offspring's attention, and zebra finches even elevate their pitch and slow down their songs to address chicks. So it's done all over the animal kingdom. Baby talk is a thing. And I think we forget this, right? Human beings they think they're such an apex fucking predator that they forget sometimes that they're not actually very unique, and all of our behaviors are mirrored, if not before we even existed, happened with all of the other animals on this planet. And actually, to be quite honest at this point, I actually sometimes wonder if the animals are human and the humans are animals, to be honest.
To be honest, if we were to shrink our frontal lobe, we'd hit the bottom of the pecking order.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
We don't have a whole lot going for us except for intelligence.
Well, I think we're shrinking our frontal lobe anyway with all the rubbish that people watch on TV and play on social media and do all the things, you know. It's an interesting time to be alive. I feel like, you know, the smart people are basically becoming invisible and the dumb people are being seen everywhere.
Well, the platform is created for everybody. What is it that Andy Warhol, everybody will get our 15 minutes of fame? Now I think if you're dumb, you get 25 minutes.
Yeah.
The more extreme you are, the dumber you are. There you go. Here's a TV program all about you and your family. Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Cue baby talk.
It is.
Yeah, cue the baby talk.
It's definitely a strange society when we look at what's accepted and what brings success versus the actual roles that are played out in society. You know, 5 minutes of shaking your ass on TikTok will earn you more money than the poor men laying the bitumen for you to drive your car on to get to the studio to shake your ass for TikTok.
But do you know what? The world is constantly evolving and it's constantly changing. You look, it's less than how long ago were we in the Victorian era where you couldn't even show an ankle? Then from then the pendulum swings to the swinging 60s, and you've got miniskirts, you've got crop tops. Society is always changing and evolving. There's a real interesting thing. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Ray Dalio.
Yes, I've heard of Ray Dalio.
Ray Dalio is this kind of hedge fund investor, billionaire from the US, and he's created this thing about the rise and falls of empires. And when empires get to the top, society becomes...
I've read this recently. This is about America about to completely capitulate. And Britain. Britain's already fucked, actually. Yeah. But America's basically on the way there now.
You could view it from that.
And then you've got India and India and Russia and China, and now they're just going up and up and up and up. In fact, India is about to take over the whole fucking world.
Well, there's the BRICS nations, so Brazil, Russia, India, China... South Africa. Yep. There's about another 40-odd countries that want to be in the BRICS nations. But basically what happens is when countries are in the early days, they work hard, they're innovative, they design, they spend money on education, they try and improve the lot of the common man. Like you look back at like America in its founding days, that's exactly what they were trying to do. So they do that, and then all of a sudden they get to a point where they create all these products, then poorer countries that want a slice of the action, they then start copying those things cheaper, and they then start using that as their step up onto wealth. But as things improve with the countries that were the original rising stars, they get to a point where the fat cat's sons don't need to go to university because they've got the wealth. Therefore, there's more money to spend and time to spend on flippant things and stuff that may not matter as much to the vast majority. All of a sudden, that becomes a big thing. So there's these whole axis of rising and falling of nations and the changing from one empire to another. And kind of that looks as though we're in that phase at the moment.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I have seen that somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't think of where. Probably the internet.
Yeah. Well, there you go, lads. Dolphins, like humans, they pitch their voice higher to do baby talk under the sea. Under the sea, under the sea.
I struggle with it,
Baby talk.
When women do the baby talk.
Yeah, it's it's very odd. It's like a disease. It just takes over every single one of them. The minute they see a baby, it's like their whole demeanor changes. I don't know, it's horses for courses or some sort of shit, but yeah, listen, I don't know. I'd just tell him, pull your fucking head in, bruv. That's what I'd tell him. I timed that one well. That was pretty good, that. I was pretty impressed with myself there. All right, well, we're getting to the end of our time here, but there's a few questions that the Lock Dog has on the way out here that we ask most of our guests. So I will leave that over to the Lock Dog.
If you had the whole world's attention for 5 minutes, what would you say?
Oh, that's a big one.
If you wanted to give a message and you had 5 minutes and all ears were yours, what would be that message?
We're all the same. Everyone has their own hopes and dreams. Don't tread on anyone else to get where you want to be.
Oh, I like that one.
That's very good.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
That kind of depicts society, everyone's crawling over the top of one another to get to the top.
Yeah.
Only to realise when they get to the top, they're to come back down.
Oh. Jesus. I feel like I should have bought a bottle of red wine and we should have just cracked on for a few hours with this podcast the way it's happening.
All right. And given everything we've discussed from professional ice hockey, police force, moving to Australia, the diagnosis, now having an incredible clinic to serve people in, what's one thing you're grateful for in life at the moment?
Oh, I'm most grateful for my partner. She's awesome. He keeps me grounded, keeps me in line. She can see the shit that I'm in. She can view from the outside what I need, because we can all see everybody else's shit, and she's great at identifying that and in a nice, kind, nurturing way telling me.
Yeah. Shout out to Joe.
Shout out to Joe.
Behind every great man,
There's a greater woman that talks to babies with high-pitched voices.
well, in my case, it's just a shadow, but you know.
Okay, then that's fucking out there.
Oh, and this is my favourite question. Is there anything we didn't ask that you would have liked to have been asked before we close out?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed being here with you guys. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to spend time with you guys.
What's the so obviously 153 Flinders Street, Breathe, Stretch, Float is the business.
Yep.
What's ahead for this following year? Give us just give us a little bit of a plug of like, what it is, how much, or because you've got the hot yoga still and the yoga studio. Is that still happening?
Yep, we've got the yoga studio. That's going to have a little bit of a change.
Yep.
We're going to cut down on the membership type thing, and we're going to sell that in blocks more.
Okay.
Just because the world that we live in, no one wants to commit too long for anything.
Just look at the divorce rates.
Well, we live in a throwaway society, don't we?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we tend to not value our health enough.
No.
Yeah.
So, tell us about any, obviously, if there's programs, any offers, like anything that's going on that people need to know that are in Adelaide.
Look, we're constantly evolving what we do from our sound and energy healing type stuff that Joe's brings into the business.
Yep.
That's all evolving. The havening technique, there's new things being learned about that constantly. Just come along and come and have a chat. You don't even need to come and use the place. Just come in for a cup of tea if you need to.
Yep.
If you want to pop by and just kind of shoot the shit. We're here for people.
I'm telling you, it smells like healing. Just go for a smell.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
That could be like some kind of new age aftershave. Smells like healing.
Yeah, it smells. Oh, we're onto a brand now. Go on. No one heard it. Cut that out. Edit that one out. That's my idea.
Where do you think you would be today if you hadn't have found havening?
In all honesty, the way I was going psychologically and physically, the chances are I'd probably have spent some time in hospital or an institution between where I was after the marriage, the diagnosis, everything else. I was at the lowest that I have ever been.
Yeah.
So I think I'd probably been institutionalized to some point if I hadn't gone the path that I had.
And how much outside of the havening would you accredit your rise from the ash to your partner, Joe, and finding that love that we all crave or look for, or some don't even find actually in their life?
Look, I'd done an awful lot of personal development stuff, and she'd done a lot of personal development stuff too. So when we met each other, we were meeting on this point where there was a mutual understanding of the fact that we could have different values. We were two different people. So I'd moved on, but I'll give her the credit that she provides that balance for me.
Yeah.
And there's, as you say, like, you level up in life, but all you do is you find new problems for the appropriate level.
Correct.
So I've hit a few of those problems in life where she's just been there and she's had my back and she's been there to stand with me. So, yeah, she's instrumental in keeping me going as the person I am.
That's incredible.
What else you got left down there on that little pad there, Lock Dog?
It is the finale, the final and last question. So as you were aware, Jim, and probably everyone listening now is aware, the podcast called the InsideOutrz, based on, well, the name comes from our business, Inside Out Coaching and Consultancy Collective. So the question I give to you is, when you hear Inside Out, what does that mean to you? What does living from the inside out mean to you?
Well, to me, as soon as I heard the name, it indicates that you've got to sort the shit on the inside first, and that will resolve and resonate and help your outer world. If you can solve the inner turmoils and struggles, it will come into place in the outside world, and it will impact on your everyday living.
Nice.
It's a pretty good. It's a pretty good explanation, yeah.
Nice.
That's pretty much what we had kind of spoken about when we had agreed upon the name.
Yep.
Which his imagination come up with, and I was like, yep, that's the one.
Yeah. Just randomly. I remember the exact place we were on the road driving. I remember we were at the traffic lights right by our house, turning out onto Cheltenham Parade. I remember it, like coming out of Coles, and I remember just as we turned out, like it went green, and as he pulled off, I went, Inside Out Coaching. And he went, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one they're going to know around the world.
Yeah. And then my question that followed is, why is that the one? Which that was actually one of the explanations that makes sense. You got to start on the inside to change and benefit things outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't change the outside. You've got no control of the outside.
No.
So if you can change the inside, your perception of the outside is completely different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Change is hard at first, messy in the middle, but it's always gorgeous at the end. That's something that I've always believed in.
Yeah.
So it's been a wonderful journey since getting to know you. Thank you for saving me that day. I'm having a complete fucking meltdown at the BNI. Now part of the BNI, and one of the chapters, which has been an interesting start and very, very much enjoyable. So thank you for that day. Thank you for your friendship since. Thank you for your partnership now in business. Thank you for the amazing things that you have done and continue to do for the Adelaide community and the people that have been in and out of your clinic that smells like healing. We really appreciate meeting you, and Jordan's only just been in to see you to do his havening and complete it, so I think his is still probably integrating, so I'm sure I'll be interested to see as it integrates, because I remember for me it took me we're about 3 or 4 weeks into it after the fact, and I'd said to George, I reckon I've started to notice like some real shifts.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful that we were placed in your presence, and we've got to know you. And then today was just a cherry on the top, really.
It's been incredible.
Yeah, thanks for having us,
Always
guys.
incredible to have time with you.
Yeah. Well, that's it from us, but we'll say thank you as always to our two sponsors, Killer Moe's Australia. You can find them always on the link and in Instagram, and also to our man over in America, Ryan Ferrari, our 5-star classified. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to continue with what we do to support others. It's very important to us here at Inside Out Coaching on the InsideOutrz podcast that we continue to provide massive value and to continue to help others. You can have a massive part to play in that by helping us and simply hitting the subscribe button and the like button and sharing it with your friends, because the more people that are helping us, the more people we can help. So hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, get people onto it. This is a podcast show and a community where you can come in and find where you belong and understand what you don't know about yourself by the education and the people that we bring on and the things we talk about when it's just me and the lock dog. So if you're struggling with your mental health, if you are battling an addiction, and if you're sitting in the shadows, there is plenty of people and practices, practitioners and businesses out there that can help you. You've just got to find the right shoe that fits for you. Inside Out Coaching Consultancy Collective was formed in 2021 as a social enterprise, and we're here to disrupt, dispute and inspire other people to believe in better. Just like Breathe, Stretch, Float does the same. There's plenty of help out there. It is not weak to speak. Lock Dog, can you take us away with a quote or a saying of yours that we always look forward to at the end?
I actually didn't prepare one. I totally forgot, if I'm honest. But give me 1 second. I'll conjure one up.
Okay.
All right. I think I got one. Situations and things we move through in life can be perceived as difficult and overwhelming, but often perceptions are thought into existence. So there's one thing that needs to change. I'll leave you to work out what that is.
Well, profound as always. Jim, thanks very much. We look forward to continuing this great partnership and friendship. That's it from me.
That's it from the Lock Dog.
We'll see you on the flip side, my fam.
You, me, nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how
See you next time on the InsideOutrz podcast.